All right, folks, so as I said earlier, we do a lot of these deer heads throughout the year. We'll do, I don't know, I say a lot. We did, I think this will be number 13 this year, but people always want to get their Euro mounts done, and it costs around here 100, 125. You can find people that can do it cheaper, but it's honestly so cheap and easy that we do it ourselves, and so we're going to try and teach you how. But typically I like to get the deer head as fresh as it can be from somebody. The sooner we get the hide off, the better. But in some cases, as in, let's see if I can turn this around. With this one I don't know if it was frozen, but it's been pretty cold. We've had one of the coldest winters we've had in a while. So it's been kept cold, but I'm betting it's going to be pretty stinky. I don't normally do those. I turn them away, but this is for a kid, a family member, and family gets little special attention. But normally I wouldn't do this if it's nasty and stank. I haven't cut into it yet, but when I do cut into it, I'd imagine it's not going to smell the best. But rather than put all the blood and gore and everything on there, I don't want a lot of our viewers seeing that. So I am going to wait until we get it down to just the skull, and then I will pick up from there. But just a few simple tools that I use for this. I'm not good at sharpening knives, so I use a Havalon Piranta, and it's easier for me to put a new blade in it. And then you'll need this for cutting small bone in the neck on either side, a pick, and then also a pair of needle nose pliers. And then I will use a screwdriver. I'll show you later on after the first boil. I'll show you how we use that little screwdriver to pop the eardrums out. It makes life a lot easier. But all right, so yes, I just got into it. It is a bit stinky. Some people will start from the top and work down, whatever is your preference. For me, I prefer to start in, and I cut down along here, the bottom lip, and I peel everything up that way. And as I get up around the ears and around the antlers, I just work around the best I can with a knife in there. And then one of the things I will do is I'll take a knife and go right in the, I think it's called the zygomatic arch along here. I'll cut in with the knife that way and on the top, and do the same on the other side, and then I can pull that jaw back. And then when you pull that jaw back, if you leave it on there, right at the base of the scalp there, or skull, there's a lot of meat that's tough to get off, but you can use that jaw as a handle and pull, and as you pull you can scrape it pretty close to the bone, because that's one of the areas that'll give you the biggest fit. Okay, so we got it skinned out, and that had a lot of meat on it, like half the neck was on there, so it took about 20 minutes. But first thing I do is get the skin off, and then I work on the meat and the neck. But you can get it spotless and it'll take less time, but I really don't see an issue with the way I do it. So I know Caleb does it a lot differently, and maybe we can get Caleb as a guest on the show to do one for us someday. But right now I'm just showing you how I do it. But I use a knife and I just come in and get as much around the pedicle as I can, and the boil will get the rest. But a few key points of making sure you clean off really well. So the eyes, you have to grab them with a pair of needle nose, and you just use a sharp knife and cut around them. It's a good time to change a Piranta blade because you need a very sharp knife. But one of the things I want to point out right here, there is a hole, and with this lighting it's hard to tell if it's showing up, but that hole goes back in through and comes out right here. Getting the meat off of that allows the water to get back into there, and then you'll see how I get that out with the air compressor later. I could sit here and trim up every last piece, but the main things that I wanted to do, get these eyes opened up as much as possible, get that hole opened up, get this area opened up, and then underneath here, you just want to get as much of the meat out because our goal is to get down inside here. Now I'm going to take a grapefruit knife and scoop the brains out as much as I can. It's still going to be tough, but you'll get as much as you can, and then the boil will help, and I'll show you with the air compressor later. Alright, so now we're ready to soak it. I could not find my grapefruit knife, which works amazing, but I did have this pry bar, and I was able to scoop out a good bit of the brain, honestly, most of it. But the rest will boil out. I macerated it in there with that tool. And then we're going to soak it in water and this Laundry Boost. This is sodium carbonate. And get out of there, Ben. As Caleb said, he puts about, or I mean, as I said, Caleb puts about a cup per gallon. But I want to have Caleb show us that way. I don't want to do it with somebody else's head. I want this thing to look good for Connor. and I know the way that I can do it, so I'm going to do it my way. And then Caleb got us onto this sodium carbonate, but I will try it with another head using the solution that he talks about as far as the amount. But right now I got about 4 gallons of water in here. Let's see. I couldn't tell you how much. I would say I'm probably going to go, get out of there. I'm probably going about a cup and a half. About. And just so you know, I put the deer head in first to see how it would, how much it would fill up. And then I took the deer head out and just giving this a good stir. If not, it'll kind of chunk up on the bottom. But getting it all mixed up. And once it's stirred up nice, then we're going to set the deer head in and let it soak for a day. Let it soak overnight. Tomorrow I'll boil, but if you can see, there's blood on the antler still. I could scrub that off now, but when I boil this, it's all going to steam up. And when I take it out after the final boil, I'm going to give it a rinse under hot water in the sink, and I'll scrub the antlers up at that point as far as the blood. Let them get all heated up and soften up that blood on there. But anyway, that's where we're at today. So now that thing's ready to sit for 24 hours. All right, folks, since we're doing these deer heads, wanted to take a minute to show you kind of some of the things we've learned along the way, what to do, what not to do, and how to do these better. But this is one of the early ones that we did, and I say we, my dad and brother and I started doing these a couple of years back, because not everybody can afford whatever the national average is to go out and get a deer mounted. I think it's like $800. All right, so back in the day, we used to just boil and scrape and boil and scrape and boil and scrape, and this would take all day long. A lot of the process you saw as far as getting the head ready is the same, but when you do the final boil is where it comes in, or just the boil period. But Caleb, my niece's boyfriend, taught us some tricks, and it's really helped us out quite a bit. But I just want to show you a few of the things that we did wrong in the beginning. So you can see this opening along here. This is, it's preventable, and I'll show you how we do it after we take the deer head that I'm working on, Connor's deer head. After we take it out of the bath, I'll show you how we can take care of that without having to glue the snot out of it. But in these early ones, you can see, whoa, it's moving. Hold on. In these early ones, you can see that, I don't know if you can tell, but right along there, I used to use a rubber glue gun, and you can see it. I mean, in the basement, for all I care about, not a big deal, but again, we've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and these plates, if you boil all day and you're not doing a quick boil, they can come apart, so you end up with lots of pieces in the bottom of the pot. Same right here, you can see the rubber glue. And so we're going to show you some ways to do away with that. First off is doing 2 quick boils, and again, Caleb does 1 boil, I believe, but we'll see if we can get Caleb in another video to show you the way he does it, because he does a lot more. I just do about a dozen or so a year for friends. Anyway, you can see here, when these things dry out, they get out of line. And again, one of the things I do is when I pull it out of the boil and out of the peroxide and I go to allow it to dry, is stop moving. I wrap a rubber band around here. I believe Caleb uses old t-shirt, but that keeps everything in place while it dries, and you can see how it got jacked up. The other thing is in the beginning, I thought that you wanted to clean all this out, and so you cannot see the sinuses. I got a little carried away. So we've learned along the way some of the things to do and what not to do. I'm going to go ahead and switch deer heads now to bring out a more current deer head. Alright, I think you can see what's going on with this deer head, but there's a few different things going on. So we had never used the sodium peroxide, or I mean the sodium carbonate before, and when Caleb told us about it, we didn't really read the directions. We just kind of went for it. And I put this in with a lot of sodium carbonate, and I let it boil all day like I did with the old heads. And so as you can see here, we have some kind of scaling. This stuff just kind of turns to powder. So don't leave it in the sodium carbonate bath a long time, or that will happen. stick to what I'm going to show you here later. Also, the missing face, as you can see, this is really brittle now, and so when your child accidentally hits it several times with a basketball that isn't even in the same zip code as the basketball hoop, this happens. And so you come home last Saturday and you get told, I accidentally bumped your deer head. Alright, if you watched Quinn's Ohio buck back in last year, this is his buck from last year. I'm very pleased with how this one came out. You see we have the sinuses here, everything's still intact, good seams along the sutures here. Really, the color came out very nice, and you can't even tell I have super glue along these sutures. Probably not even needed, but I did it anyway. And one of the things that I do is I write the tag identification number somewhere on the deer skull so you have it for future reference. Alright folks, I'm in the basement where the lighting is not the best, and that's the fan you hear taking the wood burning stove heat upstairs. But so this is just a L bracket, a 2-inch L bracket. Give it a little bend like you see there right at that first hole, and then you can take your head and you put the Foramen Magnum, or the right where the spinal cord comes into it, put it on there, and boom, it stays like that. But as you can see, that bracket holds it nicely right on the wall, and then you don't need to spend a lot of money for it. Alright folks, we're starting the first boil. I have the trash can there to block the wind. I normally like to do these on the back porch, but the wind is blowing badly around there, so I have it around the side here, and the trash can is to block the wind. But one of the things, throw in a little dish detergent because it's a degreaser, and we're going to let that boil for about an hour and have it so I can work inside and look out the window and keep an eye on it. And every time I see the water gets low, I can come out and put a little bit in. But we're going to let it boil for an hour. Check in a bit. Alright folks, so I'm trying to do this myself, so I wasn't able to show you, but what I did is I picked this head up and I shook it. Where am I at here? I can't see with the camera. Shook, and a lot of this stuff comes out in the sinuses here. So as you can see, it's just going to be a lot of picking here. You can pick it or you can blow it with the air compressor, but around these pedicles, I take this brush and just work around and get loose all the stuff there. So this is the first boil. It's been about an hour. As you can see, it's just like cooking. Most of the meat's just coming off on its own. And this is that pick, that dental pick that Caleb gave me. Just like you go to the dentist, but it's really good. As you can see, it's just starting to peel that stuff off of there nicely. I am not going to record the entire time I'm picking, but I do want to show you a few things on here before I get going. So you're going to get brain matter, and as you can start hooking it and pulling that stuff out, that'll help with cleaning up the insides. But also, if you can get these openings around the brain opened up into here, then it'll allow the water to get down into there. But another thing I said I was going to show you is take a screwdriver and find the ear hole, push it in there, and just work your way. This eardrum right here is what we're trying to pop out. Just want to get it out of there. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it puts up a fight. This one is putting up a fight, but there we go. Now it's coming out. So what that allows is the water to get back inside there. There we go, it's coming out. Nice, okay. It allows the water to get down inside there to start getting the brain out. But you can see here, a lot of this goop is starting to come loose. We're gonna just pick at it. And again, I'll start picking at a little bit here, but I'm gonna shut the camera off soon. But basically, we're gonna just try and get this cleaned up so that our next run through, we'll just pick up any that we missed. But all right, so as you can see, I assume you can see, let me turn this around so I can see. So things are cleaning up pretty good. We still have some meat in here a little bit, but for the most part things are coming out. I'm going to try and pull that septum out now and see if it'll come. Sometimes it puts up a fight. Of course it is now. But you can take and get it loose with a tool, with a pick. Very carefully. And it's probably going to give me a fit. Normally does not. Normally comes out pretty easy. So I may need to boil a little more just to get that out of there. But at this point, I can do a little more picking. I think I need to leave it in a little bit longer. But while I got it out, I'll go ahead and just pick at a few things here. And I'm going to use the air compressor. Clean out the skull. Shove it, let's see, where am I at here? I'm going to come down. I'm just shoving the compressor right under there. So yeah, it needs a little more time. A half hour wasn't enough, but it's getting there. We're getting it cleaned off pretty good. I'm going to put it back in just for a few more minutes, and we'll go from there. But you can shake these things out and get stuff out of them, or you can use the air compressor. We are getting there. It's nice in these areas where it blew that right out. I don't know if you can see that right there. And we got some blood clot here. That's what this is. Just some blood clot that was inside. And you can just start working it back and forth through the different ways. It'll eventually come out. But that'll happen when you get a deer that was, good vital shot and bleeding out the nose. But you can see some of it inside there, right there. But anyway, I'm going to give it a little bit more time in the water. It's only been in for about a half hour, so I'll give it a little more and we'll go from there. Alright folks, so here's where we're at. We got it blown off pretty good. I can't see this too bright outside, but anyway, got it all blown off pretty good. I'm going to go inside and give it a rinse, and then we're going to put it into the peroxide bath. But a few of the extra tools I had to use is a piece of trap wire, and I just simply ran it right up the back and out this hole here that I talked about, trying to get that gunk out of there, and used it as a ramrod. And I don't know if you can see some of the junk on there, and then I just kept dipping it back in, getting it wet, and the air compressor, I used the air compressor quite a bit, blowing everything off. But now we're ready for the peroxide bath. I think I probably gave it, ended up getting about another 45-minute boil total, and probably about another, I don't know, 10-15 minutes of picking. So I probably have hands on this thing right now, probably an hour total. So I mean, it's not that it's no work, but it's not a lot of work. It can be done very easily. So I'm going to go rinse it off, and then I'll bring it out and show you how we're going to do the peroxide bath. Alright, so now I'm ready for the peroxide bath. I gave it all a good wash. I took that time in there to clean the antlers while I was in, and I'll give them another cleaning at the end. But just gave them a good toothbrush and some dish soap. And then I also gave the skull a quick scrub down with the toothbrush and dish soap just to get any chunkies off. But you see I got golf balls in here. Reason for that is that then I have to use less of the peroxide, and all I use is this basic 98 cents a bottle hydrogen peroxide. And then I take toilet paper about 3 foot length, fold it over and twist it so it's like a rope, and I pack it around the pedicles tightly. And after I put the peroxide in, I'll tuck use a tool and tuck up under just to make sure. What we don't want to do is get peroxide on the pedicle itself, or it's going to discolor. So this way the peroxide will come up, hit the toilet paper, and I'll put some across the crown here, and it'll wick into these openings. I also pack a bunch into the eye sockets. But then as the peroxide comes up, I'll probably have it about here. But I'll probably get the peroxide bath. I like to try and get it right just below the base, the lowest part of the pedicle, so just below here. That way I don't come up over, and then everything else is going to have to wick. So when you put it in, you'll have to look and see, and if there's a spot where it's sticking up out, you're going to have to put toilet paper on it to help it. As you can see, I put the toilet paper and I just kept adding and adding until I basically made a mat that goes right up underneath the pedicles, but not over top. And then you can't tell here, I don't think, I'll try and see, but my water line, oh, the kickstand thingy's in the way. Where are we at here? I'm at the wrong spot. Yep, it's not going to be able to show up, but my water line is basically right at the, just below the bottom. I mean, my peroxide line is just below the bottom of the pedicle, so that the pedicle is not in it. Same on this side. And again, I filled the eye sockets up with toilet paper, just jammed it in. It'll wick right up in through to that and make your life a lot easier. But so now at this point, I just let it go for a day, and I did not tighten up. I'll show you how to do that when I dry it tomorrow, but I didn't tighten up those sutures because I want that peroxide to work its way in there. You don't need to get every last single bit of cartilage. You do the best you can, clean it up, but a lot of that is just going to get eaten up by the peroxide, and you won't even notice it. So right now we're going to let this sit. That was 3.5. I happen to have this Tupperware that just fits perfectly for deer. Then it was 3.5 of these. And if you were doing 2 heads, you can go ahead and when you're done, you pull this out, get all the toilet paper out, take all the golf balls out, and then put your next deer head in, put the golf balls and everything back in. You can do 2 heads with 1 batch of peroxide, but I tried doing a third, it just wasn't enough. So 2 heads will do it for you. But anyway, folks, we're going to check back in tomorrow after this has had a chance to sit, and we'll go from there. Alright folks, we put this in yesterday, and we're going to see how it looks now. So we're going to do the, what do they call this, the reveal. Looking pretty good so far. Now I'm going to take this inside and give it a good rinse, but let's get it out here. See how it looks. Looks like I still got some toilet paper in the eyes there, but overall looks really good. Came out nice and clean. So now it's ready to dry. But before I put it to dry, one of the things I like to do is I put rubber bands around the rostrum, and that pulls all these sutures nice and tight together, just the way we want to make sure everything's lined up right first. And then, like I said, that's just going to draw it all together, and as it dries, it's not going to split and widen. But at this point, it is good to go in the basement, down in the next room next to the wood burner, just to dry out. And then once everything's dried out, then I'll put the final clear coat on it. But just one thing I wanted to show you is by using that toilet paper around the pedicles and wicking up, you see we didn't get any bleaching of the actual pedicle. It's all on the bottom side, so it's a nice way to keep from having to go back and touch those up afterwards. But so yeah, we'll give it. Alright folks, so this skull was hanging downstairs drying out since yesterday. I had a fire going in the next room, so the fireplace helps dry it out, but I didn't want to, I don't like putting it too close. I think it dries out too fast. I could be way off on that, but that's my rule and I'm sticking to it. I went ahead and I put some, I don't know if you can see it on here, there's a little bit of shine there. I put some super glue on the suture down the middle here before I take the rubber bands off, and a few other points where oh, hold on, here, here, down here, here. Put a little bit right out at the end, and then let me try and flip this over a little bit. I also put some right along this area in here. If you do it right and it dries fine, it shouldn't be needed. So this is probably just extra on my end. And then I put a little bit right at the point there to keep that all together. So again, probably not necessary. In the old days when we boiled these things all day, not using the solution that I showed you, these were notorious for all falling out, and then you had to put them all back together like a jigsaw puzzle. But doing it this new way, we haven't had any falling out. But I still put the super glue there, and if you notice, it's got a little shine to it. Trying to find you an angle right where the super glue is. I don't worry about that because I'm going to cover that up. Now normally I use shellac, but I did not have any shellac. I have this Rust-Oleum clear gloss, and I just tried to sample that out on a deer head I have out in the garage, and I'm going to let that dry and just make sure that it feels right, sticks good, and there's no issue before I go in. So I tested this clear coat on the other deer head, and looks good. It wasn't too shiny and it dried on there nicely. It says wood, metal, plastic, and more. I'm guessing skull is more, but you want to play the wind with this. The wind's coming from that way. I don't want it getting on our vehicles or on the house, so I don't think I need to show you this process, but I will anyways, at least some of it. But I'm going to go and I'm spraying all around, and I'm not doing heavy sprays. I'm just doing light sprays all around, working my way around, trying to get in all the, and I'll go around it a couple times. Now the wind looks like it's shifted, but you'd rather do this in a couple coats than having to have a bunch of drips coming off of it. If you do it too close, you'll get a run, and we don't want a run. We want, now the wind shifted again. I do try and get some up inside the skull there too, just not that it needs to be seen, but I feel it kind of preserves everything up in there. So my hope is just that this will shine it up a little more, and it'll make it a little harder for dust to stick to it. So when you go to dust it off, it'll be a little shinier and easier. And you can see already where I had the super glue. You can't see those lines because it's shining up. So right now, we're going to go ahead and let this dry. This is the finished deer head. Connor's deer is done. I'm going to go ahead and deliver it today. I don't have the fancy turntable. I had to prop it up with my knife there. But yeah, they come out pretty good, and they're, like I said, not a lot of work at most. As far as actual hands on the deer head, touching it, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but more about an hour. But they come out nice and clean, and they're fairly cheap. Honestly, I can do these deer heads. I have about, I don't know, $4 in peroxide. I don't know how much I have in propane because the big tank lasts through many deer heads, but probably just a couple dollars in propane. A couple squirts of Dawn dish detergent. I really can't think of much else, but I mean, you're talking at probably less than $12 to do a deer head, 10 or 12 bucks, and then just time. And even at that, it's not a large amount of time. It's hour and 15 of hands-on, but you have to be around and have something to do while it's in the pot boiling. But yeah, I would rather do this all day long than pay 125 bucks for them. And these Euro mounts come out so nice. They make the antlers look bigger. If you don't shoot monster bucks like us, you shoot decent bucks. The ability to make the antlers look a little bit bigger is a good thing. So anyway, folks, that is it, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this helps you do your next deer head. So thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend.